The music thumped before I even stepped into the living room, a relentless beat that made my chest tighten, not from excitement but from an unshakable sense of unease. I had expected our anniversary party to be a celebration, friends, laughter, clinking glasses. But from the moment I saw her through the throng of people, I felt the first prickle of something I couldn't name. She was across the room, laughing in a way that felt foreign to me, leaning against someone I didn't know as if she had been waiting for him all night. "Matt, you made it," she called, flashing that smile I had loved for years. But there was a tilt to her voice, a spark in her eyes that didn't belong to me. My stomach churned as I forced a smile and walked over. "Of course," I said, trying to hide the unease creeping up my spine. "You look great." "Thanks. But hey, I want you to meet someone," she said, tugging me toward the center crowd. And that's when I noticed him, her best friend, Derek. Broad shoulders, easy charm, a smile that somehow made me feel invisible. "Matt," Derek said, extending a hand. I shook it, a knot forming in my chest. There was nothing overtly wrong about the interaction, nothing that would normally raise a flag. But the way she leaned just a little too close, the way her hand brushed his arm and lingered, it set off a chain reaction in me that I couldn't ignore. We spent the next hour in the swirl of party chatter, but my mind was elsewhere. Every glance she gave Derek felt loaded, like an unspoken secret I wasn't meant to understand. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. I tried to believe in the woman I had married, the life we had built, the trust one had never questioned, until she laughed, a full, unguarded laugh, and leaned up on her toes to whisper something in his ear. The world tilted, and I could no longer pretend. I walked out to the balcony for a breath of air, the cool night pressing against my skin, my hands shaking slightly. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, searching for a rationale that didn't exist. Derek was just her friend, I told myself. Just her friend. But even as I repeated the mantra, my gut churned with suspicion. Minutes later, she appeared beside me. "Matt, what's wrong?" Her tone was concerned, casual, but I saw the way she shifted slightly when Derek's name came to mind. "Nothing," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Just needed some air." "Okay," she said, smiling, and slipped her hand into mine. But it wasn't the same touch. It was measured, careful, like she knew something I didn't yet want to admit. The first subtle clues didn't matter much at the time. A message I caught flicking across her phone screen, quickly hidden. A lingering scent of cologne that wasn't mine. Her sudden excuses to step away from conversations we once shared. Small things that didn't amount to anything individually, but together they formed a mosaic of quiet unease I couldn't ignore. Later, the DJ called for couples to the dance floor. I hesitated, heart pounding, as I scanned the crowd. She was already swaying to the music with Derek, arms brushing, heads close, eyes sparkling with familiarity that should have belonged to me. I felt my chest constrict. I walked over, forcing a smile. "Mind if I join you?" "Oh, Matt, I was just showing Derek the new steps," she said, but the way her eyes danced toward him and lingered, it was unbearable. Something snapped inside me. I turned, scanning the room until my gaze landed on someone I hadn't considered before, her other friend, Lena, who had always seemed quietly supportive, subtly attuned to the currents of emotion in the room. She caught my glance and nodded ever so slightly, a silent understanding passing between us. Without thinking, I offered my hand. "Dance with me?" I said. Her surprise melted into a gentle smile. "Of course." And just like that, we moved onto the dance floor. The music became background noise as the tension between the three of us, and between me and my wife, drew into stark relief. I could feel her watching, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. But I didn't care. For the first time that night, I felt a flicker of agency, a shard of control amidst the chaos of betrayal that was unraveling around me. We danced, slowly at first, and then with a rhythm that felt like quiet defiance. Lena's warmth, her understanding of the unspoken pain in my movements, made the contrast of my wife's deceit all the more painful. Every glance of my wife felt like a knife twisting in my chest, and yet, strangely, every moment on the dance floor with Lena felt like a small reclamation of the dignity I hadn't realized I had lost. Later, When the party began to wind down, I noticed the messages on her phone. Unread texts, names that didn't belong to anyone I knew, conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. It was no longer subtle. The betrayal was plain, a raw, open wound I had ignored for too long. I confronted her quietly, away from the crowd, words low but trembling. "Emily, what is going on?" She avoided my gaze, her lips pressed thin. "Matt, it's not what you think." "Then explain why I just watched you act like you were single in front of everyone. Like you didn't even have a husband," I said, voice breaking. The words were heavier than I imagined, each one loaded with months of suspicion and heartbreak. She started, but no explanation came that felt true, and the silence that followed spoke louder than any lie could. I realized then that trust, once fractured, could never be fully reclaimed. I left the room. I left the party. I left the life I had thought was secure, carrying only the weight of certainty. Outside, the night air hit my face, cool and unforgiving, and I took a steadying breath, acknowledging the truth I had avoided for far too long. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about survival, about reclaiming a sense of self that had been quietly eroded by betrayal. And in that moment, as I watched her through the glass, laughing in a way that no longer included me, I understood something painful and liberating. Love could end, trust could shatter, but a man could still walk away with his dignity intact. The car engine started, the headlights cutting through the darkness as I drove away. Behind me, the party lights blurred into the night, fading like the illusions I had held on to for years. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the anger, beneath the heartbreak, I felt the first, trembling flicker of freedom. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know if she would come looking, if apologies would matter. But I did know this. I would never let someone else's betrayal define my worth again. As the city lights receded behind me, I let the silence settle, heavy and cleansing. For the first time in months, I felt the quiet pulse of my own life, uninterrupted, unbroken. Just me, moving forward,